guys, welcome to BlackStory Kyia. I'm Kyia and this is the channel all about Black history. Today I'm starting a new series called This is the Day, where we talk about specific dates in Black history. And today we're going to be talking about Juneteenth. So if you would like to learn all about Juneteenth and why I think it should be celebrated, then keep on watching this video. So allow me to give you a little bit of background on slave ownership in America. So slaves have been kidnapped and sold into slavery by Europeans since as early as the 1300s or 1400s. Slaves have been sold and traded in America before America was ever America. Many believe 1619 to be the earliest that African slaves were sold in America with their arrival in the Jamestown colony. However, according to the History Channel's article posted August of 2019, captive African slaves were sold in North America as early as the 1400s, and what is now known to be the United States as early as 1526, meaning slaves have been here maybe even 100 years before people believe them to have been. This is posted by the History Channel on their website. I don't think I have to tell you what slaves were used for here in North America or any place else. I think you have an idea by now what African slaves were used for. But if you don't, I will give you a brief summary. Slaves were responsible for producing crops such as cotton, wheat, tobacco, rice, and sugarcane. Slaves were used to do housework and field work for their slave masters. Housework included things like cooking, cleaning, serving food. They worked as midwives, helping to deliver these white babies. They cared for the children of these their slave owners. They tended to their ill slave masters. They seamed clothes. They did basically anything that they were told to do in the house or in the field. Slaves were also used to build tons of different structures in the United States, some which included the U.S. Capitol building, many of the 4 major railroads in the United States, the Thomas Jefferson Estate at Monticello, and many other presidential estates. They built Wall Street and the White House. This all according to the route. Slaves were branded, whipped, beaten, violated, and killed by slave owners. The Northwest Ordinance of 1787 prohibited the purchase of new slaves in the Northwest Territories and states which we now know to be areas such as Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio, and Wisconsin. By 1860, there were already free states and territories which outlawed the ownership of slaves, meaning that these states and territories saw a rise in freedmen and a decrease in slave labor in these Northwest states and territories. In 1861, the states embarked in a civil war called the American Civil War, which lasted 4 years. The country basically divided into 2 or 3. The Union controlled states and territories such as Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Kansas, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Oregon, and California. Whereas Border states included Missouri, Kentucky, West Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware. In the Confederate, which are the southern states, they included Alabama, Arkansas, the Carolinas, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Texas. The Union controlled most of the population. The Union had 18.5 million in its population, all considered to be free. Border states had 3 million in its population, with 2.5 being free and 500,000 enslaved people. The Confederacy had the most slaves, with 3.5 million enslaved and a free population of 5.5 million. This means by 1860, there were 26.5 million people in America and 4 million enslaved Africans here in the United States. 4 million enslaved Africans. That's more slaves than the entire population of Los Angeles today. 1/3 of these enslaved persons were in the South. Texas itself had 250,000 slaves by 1860. President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation January 1st of 1863. In the United States, children are taught in school that the Emancipation Proclamation freed all slaves, when realistically at that time, the Emancipation Proclamation freed slaves who were within the Union territory or on those border lines where they would be able to hear the news and flee from their captivity. It is estimated that approximately 500,000 slaves took their freedom at that time from those border states such as Maryland, Delaware, West Virginia, Kentucky, and Missouri. However, it would be another 2 years before slaves in Confederate territories would hear that news and be free. April 9th, 1865, the Union defeated the Confederate Army, ending the Civil War. But it would be another 2 months before slaves got word. On June 19th, 1865, the Union soldiers led by General Granger rode into Galveston, Texas to issue General Order No. 3, which ordered all slaves to be free. So the remaining slaves were set free 2 months after the Civil War ended and 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was issued. Texas alone at that time had to free 250,000 slaves. It is safe to say that many slave owners were upset and many slaves were rejoicing. And a year later, these freedmen celebrated their first Juneteenth in 1866. So how did they celebrate Juneteenth? Well, slaves were not allowed to wear fine clothes, so many of these freed men and women would dress up in their finest clothes. They would have large gatherings and parties, parades, cookouts, and cultural festivities. Elders would share stories of their ancestors and their heritage so that the newer generations would never lose this information. Unfortunately, over the years, our ancestry and heritage has been lost, but many today are trying to trace back their ancestry to reconnect with their African roots. Today, Juneteenth is celebrated by having cookouts and parades as well, many different types of festivities. Different cities have their own celebrations for Juneteenth. In 1997, Juneteenth was recognized by Congress as Juneteenth Independence Day. However, Juneteenth has yet to become a national holiday. With the conversation of Juneteenth usually comes the conversation of reparations. Reparations was first sponsored by Representative John Conyers Jr. in 1989 and is still backed and supported by House Representative Sheila Jackson Lee and Senator Cory Booker today. This H.R. 40 proposes a bill to provide funds to the descendants of slaves who have inherited the effects of slavery today. We should use Juneteenth as a day of remembrance and a celebration of our heritage and ancestry. We should also remember that the fight is not over. There's so much more to accomplish in equality for Black people in America and around the world. We must stay vocal and vigilant and fight for our rights and fight for equality here in America. So that's it for this video, you guys. That was my very first episode of a new series in which I called This is the Day, where we learned about Juneteenth. Hopefully some of you are considering celebrating Juneteenth now, but let me know down below in the comments if you're going to be celebrating Juneteenth and maybe how you plan on celebrating Juneteenth. Thank you guys so much for watching. I plan on doing a lot more of these videos. Let me know down below in the comments which date in history I should be discussing next. And yeah, so I hope you all just, stay vocal, stay vigilant, and take care of yourselves. Register to vote, because that's how we're going to make real change in this country. But I really hope that everyone's doing well in this really tough time with a lot of things happening. I know that's a very difficult thing to say, because how do you do okay? But yeah, please try to take care of yourselves. It's just a lot going on, but hopefully at the end of all of this, things are actually, change is going to be made. That is the hope, and that is what we are pushing for. But continue to educate yourselves and educate those around you, and being vocal about the things that is happening. Yeah, but I really hope everyone's doing well in this really tough time. But I do plan on doing a lot more videos. Let me know what you guys want to see from me. Like, comment, subscribe, share this video if you please, and check out all of my social medias. I'll leave the links to those down below. And until next time, I'm Kyia, and this is BlackStory Kyia. Bye!